Boys, girls, all my traumaholics out there, welcome back to Otherobert. I'm Joe, I'm the other and other Robert. If you're asking where the Robert is, it's because I've talked about it the past couple weeks. We can't exactly do live shows right now. So, has to be one of us. He's doing once, he did once. The review's up, go watch it. And once upon a time, that is. And I'm doing Walking Dead. So, this is the review for Season 6, Episode 15, titled East. Basically, Carol goes missing, I use that in quotations, and they go out and find her. And, there's kind of a bunch of people who go out searching. And it's funny because you see Daryl go out first. And you think he's going for Carol because Daryl and Carol have had this connection throughout the series. And it turns out he doesn't even know. We can imply that he doesn't even know. He went to the spot with Denise. He was going to get Dwight and the Saviors. So he probably doesn't even know right now. So and we'll definitely get into Daryl's status at the end. So there's that, and then Rick and Morgan go out and try and find Carol, and Michonne, Glenn, Rosita, and Daryl, they're out trying to take care of the whole Saviors thing. So, this was an interesting episode. I mean, it didn't pack the punch that some of these other episodes have packed, but there was definitely a lot here, and it was the case we got with last week's episode, where the first 40 minutes, it's kind of slower. There's some interesting dialogue here, especially with Rick and Morgan. And then the last 20 minutes is just, you don't see it coming. And I was kind of expecting us to see Dwight again. I was kind of expecting it after last week, and we did. We did see Dwight. So, really, we have Rick and Morgan and their relationship. And Rick has come just so far. They're opposite in their ideologies. And they're complete polar opposites. And Rick has come so far from what he was. And I think Morgan's going to kind of bring him back. So, although you look at it and you realize, you might even side with one of these two. I don't know. But the way I view it is they're both wrong, and the middle ground is a safe option. But it's a tricky ethical issue that these two characters are presented with, and it's interesting to kind of see this go back and forth, because Rick is very aggressive and I guess stubborn in some ways. But when Morgan kind of calls him out on some stuff towards the end of the episode, Rick kind of just listens, and it seems like it's soaking in a little bit. So, where does that go from there? I don't know. I don't think this whole Morgan mindset is the right way to go now, out of all times. Because Negan's coming. We've all heard about Negan. They've built up Negan so much. I think this is going to be a lot bigger than Governor, a lot bigger than the Governor arc, which is, to this day, probably the biggest arc we've had in Walking Dead on the TV show. So I think this is going to be way bigger. So this is probably not the best time for Morgan to be doing this, but I don't know. We'll see. Definitely interesting stuff there. We also see Maggie and Enid have a little bit, and it seems like Maggie's kind of taken a mother-like role model to Enid. And I kind of have a guess. I don't know if this is that way in the comics, or if I don't even know if Enid's in the comics. I don't know. This is in the comics, so I don't know. I'm just saying, it seems like something towards the end of the episode went wrong with the baby. Whether Maggie still is able to have the baby or not, at this point, that was pretty brutal. It didn't look good, I'll say. So even I don't think she, at this point, will have it. It looked like something terrible was happening. So if she doesn't, I really think Enid's going to kind of become a daughter type figure to Maggie. Regardless of, I know everyone's kind of expecting Glenn to maybe leave the show next week. That's uh, people are expecting Glenn to die. It's some people because of how he meets his end in the comics. I don't know. I don't know what to expect with this whole thing, and it would make sense if Maggie loses Glenn that she gets Enid, and they kind of have this really close relationship. It would definitely make sense. Even if she doesn't lose Glenn, I can still see Enid kind of becoming this figure, and even if she keeps the baby, there's so many what ifs right now. But I definitely think going forward, no matter what happens, I think Enid's going to be a big part of Maggie's character going forward. And you're seeing that, and you're seeing that relationship blossom. Enid with both Maggie and Glenn. So, that was in there. So a little bit of Carl, not too much. You picked up a gun. I missed it, but apparently people are saying there was a carving of a bat with barbed wire on it, which is the weapon of choice for Negan, apparently. So what we'll see with that. And then we have the other storyline going on with Daryl, Glenn, Rosita, and Michonne. And that one is a bit more... I'm trying to find the right word to sum it up. It's not so straightforward, I guess. I mean, with Rick and Morgan, you have this ideology, you have this one, and that's it. It got a little messy with the Daryl situation, because Daryl feels guilty about the whole Denise thing to a point because he let Dwight go. And, I mean, it kind of works with the Morgan and Rick situation, right? Because this was a situation where Daryl went with the Morgan mindset and let Dwight live. And then it comes back later, and as Morgan likes to say, a return. This was the return. Denise died at the hands of Dwight. So, this is that return. So Daryl is feeling guilty and wants Dwight. And I love this rivalry with Dwight and Daryl. It really is something, and I hope it's something we can save for a while to come, because the two of them they're great foils for each other. I said that last week, and I'll say that again this week. They're great foils for each other, and I can't wait to see more with the two of them. And Rosita is still kind of at the forefront here. She, in recent episodes, has been given a lot more, and she's becoming a much more interesting character. And she had a lot here. Glenn had some pretty sincere moments, and Michonne is still kind of the voice of reason in many ways, but Glenn was a little bit too here too. The spoilers. I'm kind of dancing around the spoilers, but if you have not seen this episode, you don't want to know what happens next, so don't keep watching. Go watch the episode, come back, and see what I had to say. Ready? Okay. Daryl got shot. He got shot, and it looked and sounded bad. Bad. It looked like it was a shoulder shot. It looked like he wasn't shooting to kill. It looks like he was shooting to wound. I don't know. That was a pretty brutal shot. That's all we can make of it right now. But that was brutal. And it looks like the Saviors have 4 captives for next week, not including... We don't even know where Carol is. But I would lose it if, with Carol's whole situation with her not wanting to kill, I completely forgot about... Not forgot, I forgot to mention about Carol with the guys on the road, which, I mean, what's there to say? It's Carol still just saying, don't make me kill you, and they make her kill them. She's such a badass that she doesn't want to be. And it just happens. Sorry about that. And it just happens. And Carol continues to be just such an I always say interesting, but at sometimes just like Rick said, she's a force of nature. It's really crazy how unstoppable this character has been. And just think, before season 3, I believe she didn't even shoot a gun. So she's come such a long way from where she was. Um, Not only mentally, but with just as a fighter, I guess, as a soldier, she's come so far. She took all those guys out, and she's. It seemed like she sewed the gun in her jacket earlier in the episode. She was ready for that. She had it planned. She didn't want to do it, but she had it just in case, and that's crazy. And if she comes out next week and rescues some of or all of the people who are being held captive right now by the Saviors, I mean, what else do you do? This character is just unstoppable, right? I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to pull another Terminus on us. I do think at least one of the captives will meet their end. I think they pulled the Daryl gunshot to kind of trick people into thinking it will be Daryl, but I still think it will be Glenn. It makes the most storyline sense right now for Glenn. He's for the past half of the season. He's kind of been this beacon of hope with the baby coming and everything, and he wanted the baby, and he really is just this beacon of hope. And I've said this pretty much since around the premiere, and it would make the most sense for Negan and the Saviors just to crush that hope. From a story perspective, it makes the most sense. Also makes a lot of sense for Carol. So we don't know where Carol is. She might be being held captive too. It's also possible we see more than one character die. If they, just think, if they killed Daryl, Glenn, and Carol, they killed all the originals besides Rick and Carl. That would be nuts. I don't think that's happening, but I mean, it could. I don't know. I think this is going to be big next week. And my guess is still Glenn is getting the axe or the bat in this case. But interesting stuff. And Daryl's gunshot, I think he's going to be fine. But it was a brutal shot. But I think he's going to be fine in the long run. I think they just did that to cause some, not confusion, but to get people kind of thinking differently for next week. But that's pretty much it for me for this week's episode of The Walking Dead. Let me know your thoughts down below. Subscribe. It takes around that much effort to do so. Until next time, you have been traumatized.